Hey, Coach, I know the audio isn't the best on this and the video isn't the best. I'm in my basement watching the NBA first round. Wanted to put this up. I hope you enjoy this video. Coach was able to share it with us, and we're super excited to put it on our YouTube channel. Make sure you go and check out tryouts.com. It'll be one of these corners. Go click on it. I think you'll enjoy it. 14-day free trial. It's a great resource. A lot of like-minded coaches getting together and just talking basketball. So go check it out. We just got done with our one-on-one calls for last week. So it's a great time to not only watch things on YouTube, but to join a basketball community. So go over and check it out, www.teachhoops.com, for coaches who want to get better. Enjoy the video.
Hi, I'm Doug Skockle. I want to welcome you to another YouTube video session. Got a good topic for you here today. It's entitled How to Win 80% of Your Close Games. And that's exactly what our teams have done over the last 40 plus years that I've been a coach. 9 years as a high school boys coach, a little over 30 years as a college men's coach, and in retirement the last 6 years I've been a skill development coach in a college women's program as well. So the topic, I think, it may be one of the most important things. When I go to coaching clinics, a lot of times people are trying to find out, why do you win? Why do your programs win so much? We won 15 conference championships over that period of time. I had a state championship team in high school, state runner-up team in high school in 2 different states. We won 10 college conference championships and national tournament trips and so on. And so what are the things that really set you apart, that allow you to accomplish those things? And I think today's topic is one of the biggest reasons why. We kept track, and as I said earlier, we've won 80% of our close games over that entire span of my coaching career. So I want to share with you exactly why that is, because it's not an accident. Okay, it's something very carefully planned, and I want to show you how to stack the deck in your favor. Law of averages would say you'd win 50% of your games over that period of time, but because we put so much emphasis on practicing late game situations, we have a significant advantage. We practice late game situations every day in practice, from the first day of practice to the last day, and I'm talking about every day. We never take a day off, and so by the time you get to the end of the season, we may have 50, 60 or more close game experiences under our belt. And that's great for the coach, or for the players, because they tend to make better and better decisions. And for you as a coach, you'll find that not only will you make better decisions in a late game situation, but you'll make them quicker. And as you stockpile these experiences, and we used to ask our players at the beginning of the year when I was a college coach, we'd get players that come in as freshmen, and of course maybe some Division I transfers and some junior college transfers, and I'd say, show of hands, in your previous program, how many of you practiced the last minute or 2 minutes of a game every day in practice? And in all my years of coaching, I never had one player raise his hand. So what I told our players is, and that's going to be our advantage, because nobody else in the country is going to work at this as hard as we do. So we get in those last 2 minutes of a game, we're going to be so much better prepared, so much more experienced than anybody else that we play. I ran a basketball camp at Mesa State College. That was a Division II school where I spent 30 years in Grand Junction, Colorado. And over the course of 8 weeks of camps, coaches would come in, and invariably we'd have this conversation. I'd say, Coach, how was your season? They say, oh, Coach Skockle, man, we were so close. We were 11 and 12. We were a little under 500, but we lost 5 games by a total of 13 points. And so my thought was immediately, I didn't say this to the coach, my thought immediately was, wow, what if they'd won 80% of those 5 losses? How could that impact a season? I want you to think about this. Let's take that 11 and 12 season, and let's let them win, because they've worked on it and deserve it, that they win 4 of those 5 games. Well, suddenly you go from 11 and 12 to 15 and 8. That is a significant difference. But here's what else happens. When you're 15-8, you start thinking you're a pretty good team, and suddenly you win one or two other games because you think of yourself as a good team. And so instead of 15-8, now you're 16-7 or 17-6, whatever the case may be. So I mean, it's very impactful. I mean, it really makes a huge difference. Our 1994-95 Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference Championship team at Mesa State had a very unique season. 18 of our 19 games were decided by single digits. Okay, a single-digit margin of victory. 18 of the 19 games, and because we won, such a high percentage, as I mentioned, we did win the championship. So, what I want to do now is get into the whys and the wheres of how we practice this type of thing. And here's the first thing that I found over the years that became very clear to me, that 80% of all close games are lost, not won. So I want to make sure that you understand that. Someone on the losing team, one or more than one players, will make some kind of mistake, and often it's a mental mistake. They made a bad choice, and it opened just opened the door and allowed the other team to slip in and be victorious. So that's the first thing that I tell my players at the beginning of every season, is that 80% of all close games are lost, not won. We don't have to do anything heroic. We don't have to have the last minute, last second ESPN highlight shot to win the game or whatever it is. If we will just stay within our system and do what we do, you'll just simply create a situation where you allow the other team then to mess up at some point, and it opens the door for you to win. We do have answers for the other 20% of the time. We have last second plays, a series of those that we practice and rehearse, and so when we get in a late game situation, we don't go into a timeout and I'm frantically diagramming plays, and instead it's just simply a review of what we've done. And there's a tremendous amount of confidence again that comes from this. Your players, I mean, they would run into huddles and they go, "Time and score, baby. This is our time." And that confidence, really goes a long ways. Like I mentioned, we do have special plays. I'll talk about a couple of those later in the video. And as we always told our players, that those plays, those situations don't guarantee victory, but they do guarantee you a chance at victory. I can't tell you how many times over the years, games I've been involved in, or games where I've gone recruiting and watched high school games and so on, where I've seen, I had one year I was recruiting the only seat left in a packed gym was right behind the team that I was, I was looking at one of their players, and so I'm right behind there. Well, they get into the huddle with 3 seconds to go, and they're down 2. And I'm watching the coach diagram a play, and I mean, it's a great play, and I'm making a mental note. I'm saying, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to write that one down because they're going to score and tie this thing up." But the coach was frantically diagramming the play. The team went out, and it was amazing. 3 of his 5 players went the wrong direction on the play, and they didn't even get a shot off. And it was just stunning. And then, that's when I realized that, well, obviously that's the first time they'd ever seen that play, was when it was diagrammed on the board. So again, we try to take all the chance out of this situation. All right, so I want to talk to you about a thing that we do every day in practice called time and score. Now, I was really lucky in 1964 when I started coaching a long time ago, but there weren't videos, there weren't DVDs or any of that kind of stuff. There were simply books, and so there was a thing called the Coach's Book Club. One of the very first books that I got was the book I'm holding up right now, called Winning Basketball Strategy by a guy named Glenn Wilkes, and it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I began to look at all these late game scenarios, and then I had an opportunity to listen to Morgan Wooten, the great DeMatha Catholic high school coach, and of course I had an opportunity to watch and attend clinics where Dean Smith was. These coaches also placed a premium on late game preparation. And so what came out of that, I think the phrase time and score actually came from Morgan Wooten, And so I want to tell you what it is. It's basketball's version of football's 2-minute drill. And what we do every day in practice, at the end of practice, we rehearse scenarios anywhere from 2 seconds to go to 2 minutes to go in a ball game. And as I mentioned before, it's such a great confidence builder. But here's the other thing. So we play all these close games in practice. What happens is it helps you prevent that and avoid that crushing, preventable loss. And if you've been in coaching, and we've all had them, and I've had them too, but not very many, but we've had them where you had a crushing loss, where somebody made just a bad choice, a big mental mistake, and it allowed the other team to win the game. Well, I guarantee you that kid and your team and you won't ever forget that. But to me, that's too high a price to pay. Okay? I don't want to pay the price of a loss of a basketball game when maybe I could have had that scenario come up in a practice and make that mistake. And we tell our players in these time and score situations, make all the mistakes you want. Make all the mistakes you want. And then we won't repeat them in a game. And so I think that's a really important thing. The other thing that's kind of interesting, once or twice a year, I have a player come into the locker room afterwards and go, "Coach, can you believe it? Remember time and score on Wednesday? That was the exact situation that unfolded here in tonight's game." And so it's, again, it's exciting for us and gives us a tremendous advantage. I want to give you a couple of examples of scenarios of opponents' mistakes that, again, I think these could have been corrected in a time and score situation. We were down at Western New Mexico University one year, and we are coming down the floor. We have a 1-point deficit. We're down 1. We're coming down the floor, getting ready to set up a last-second play. With about 8 or 9 seconds to go, the Western New Mexico player makes a beautiful defensive play and just strips our point guard of the ball. Now, he is racing to the other end of the floor. The clock is counting down. They have a 1-point lead, and you can see him begin to gather. He's going to put the exclamation point on their victory with a big dunk. But what happens is he dribbles the ball off his foot out of bounds, and there's 2 seconds remaining. We have had for years a beautiful play we call the 94-foot play. We put our 94-foot play into effect, and we score a layup at the buzzer to win by 1 point. Now again, if this kid, all that kid had to do was dribble out the clock. And because we didn't have anybody within 15 or 20 feet of him when he made the steal, after he made the steal. Another example, we were at New Mexico Highlands University, and they're in a situation where they are trying to remember the scenario now exactly. They're up two. They are up 1, and they're shooting the second part of a 1-on-1. Okay, 2 seconds to go again. If the kid misses it, they still have a 1-point lead, and we really don't have time now to rebound the ball and advance it up. We don't have any timeouts left either. But instead, he makes the free throw. And we have rehearsed our 94-foot play enough that we don't have to, we didn't need a timeout. Our kids knew where to go and what to do. We throw our 94-foot play in, we score at the buzzer, and then go on to win in overtime. Again, a time and score scenario. If he had intentionally missed the second free throw, we would have had no chance to win that game. All right, so how do we do it? Our time and score. Here's what we do. We have a sheet, and actually this is the sheet, a time and score sheet that we have that's ready for every practice. But I've had it enlarged so it's easier to see for you. And Josh, we may want to zoom in on some of these things possibly, okay? But this is a sheet that is on the score table, and when the kids come into practice each day, one of the first things they do, we take some dice, all right? And the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to roll dice. Players are going to roll dice to see how many fouls each one of those players is going to have when we get the time and score at the end of practice. So you can see right here, we've got players' names, the point guard, the 2, the 3, 4, 5. We've got 2 subs in here, and the fouls. So they write in here in this column. They write in. You know, each player rolls dice and puts the number of fouls he's got in there. We usually designate a captain for that day. He will roll the dice, and he'll put the number of timeouts that they have remaining right here. Okay, so up here in this corner you can see we've got the number and the date. This was our 28th time and score situation on December 9 of 2014, for example. So again, you can see down here we talk about rolling dice. Obviously, you roll 1 through 5. That's how many fouls you have. You roll 6, you roll again. But if you have 5 fouls, then either you're going to switch teams or you're going to sit out and one of these subs is going to come up and take your place. Because in a late game situation, you know, a lot of times early in my coaching career, I practiced with my best players in late game situations. Then we get to the end of the game and I have a kid fouled out, or maybe 2 kids fouled out, and I hadn't worked with those other players. So it's all a random situation right here. And then as far as timeouts, if you roll a 1 or a 4, you say you have 1 timeout remaining. If you roll a 2 or 5, you got 2 timeouts remaining. A 3 is you have 3 timeouts. You roll a 6, you have no timeouts. All right. So now here's our today's game. We've got the maroon team is trailing by 1 point against the gold. The maroon team with Bo Smith is going to shoot a 1 free throw with, and then we got a minute and 20. We got a minute and 22 seconds remaining in the game. All right. So then let me set this down. So then we play the game out. Now there's another factor in here. I had a ball game, well, many years ago. We were in overtime. It was when I was a high school coach. We were in overtime, and I had a guy. One of my players was standing no farther than from me to where the camera is right now, with his back to me. One of my players. I'm screaming as loud as I can to get his attention, and he can't hear me. And so after that, what I did is I went to a local, our play-by-play guy on the radio. I went to him and I said, "Hey, can you make up a tape of crowd noise for me?" And so he did, and he gave me a tape with about 20-25 minutes of crowd noise on it. So when we do this time and score, we recognize at the end of the practice, we will put this crowd noise on the PA system and crank it up to about 9. And you can't even hear yourself think. I mean, it's just it's incredible. But what it does is it vastly improves player-to-player communication and player-to-coach communication. And of course, you've got to be prepared to have, you know, maybe some hand signals or something. But it's a real important thing, and I call it's the confusion factor. And maybe you're never going to be in a gym with with that kind of noise and that kind of confusion. But the fact that it just enhances and improves the eye contact and the player-to-player and coach-to-player communication is well worth it. All right, so we'll play out the scenario then. I have, again, let me refer back to here, all right, but down here you'll see in-game notes, and then here you'll see post-game notes, all right. So I hand this sheet, all right, so I'm going to hand this sheet to our student manager, and what happens is as the scenario, as the game plays out, if something happens, say 52 seconds to go, John Jones, made not a good decision. I'll turn to the manager. I'll say 52 seconds to go, John Jones, blah blah blah, whatever it is. Now, in the early years, I would stop the play and point out John's error, but then I began to see that wasn't game-like, and so I wanted to make sure that we made it more game-like. And I really was hoping that John Jones' mistake would cost his team the victory in that time and score situation. So again, it'd be another really good lesson learned. And so we would play that situation out, and then as soon as we were done, we shut off the crowd noise. We would gather the center jump circle, and I'd sit the players down, and then I would take that sheet from the manager and I'd say, okay, with 52 seconds to go, John, you did such and such. What do you think would have been a better choice? And I always like to ask the players rather than tell them, because I want them to be engaged. All right? If John couldn't tell me, then I'd open it to the team. If the team couldn't tell me, then of course I would tell them what it was. If it was a scenario that the players or my...
Hey Coach, I hope you're enjoying this video. I'm just in my basement, my messy basement. Coach was nice enough to share this with us and allow me to put it on my YouTube channel. Make sure you go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. I think it's a great community of like-minded coaches, hundreds of basketball videos, lessons, practice plans, community, you name it, we have it. And for less than the price of a DVD, you can join a basketball community of like-minded coaches. So go over and check it out. 14-day free trial. I do not think you'll be disappointed. All right, let's get back to the video.
Myself, if I didn't really know what I wanted to do in that situation, I'd tell the kids. I think that's important. I don't think you can try to bluff them. You don't try to, I just say, you know what? I'm not sure what I want to do in that situation. Give me 24 hours. We'll talk about it tomorrow, and I'll have an answer for you. So I think that's really important. Another thing is an option that we do is that, we will coach in those time and score situations. There's a timeout. We'll go into the huddle and coach the players and so on. But on certain days, we designate a player coach. And if there's a timeout, they'll determine if they're going to call timeout or not. All right, and so they will conduct the huddle. They'll talk about what they're going to do in the huddle. We'll go in the huddle and listen, and maybe make some notes on what they had to say. But again, it's another way just to get kids to buy in, and it's a pretty good situation for your team. All right, so after we do that, the other thing again that we do is that we'll look at the different scenarios, and here's things that you need to look at. For example, you need to categorize scenarios that you need to practice in. And by the way, when we do these time and scores, I showed you, what today's scenario was, but it could be anything. It's, we're up 1 to 3 points, we're down 1 to 3 points, scores tied, their ball, our ball, shooting a free throw, ball's got to go all the way through the 94 feet, go through a press, it's out of bounds under our own basket, out of bounds, on the sideline. You name it. We try to create all kinds of situations, then we just play them out. And it is amazing the number of weird and wild things that'll come up in your practices. Things you could, sometimes you can't even, you couldn't even make up some of the things that happen. But again, it's all part of this process, and as I said before, 80% of all close games are lost, not won. So again, we want to work on different scenarios. So we want to take a look at our come from behind strategy, all right? Use of timeouts. And I'm not going to get into all this stuff because it's just, there's way too much stuff in here, but you'll begin to create your own mental file, or actually a physical file of these kinds of scenarios. As I said, it's going to make you a better coach, and your kids are going to be better prepared. But so, use of timeouts. And I really, really do not like to use timeouts. If I can, I don't want to take any timeouts before we get to, let's say, the 8-minute mark of the basketball game. If I can prevent, sometimes I know you don't have a choice, but I want to save timeouts. I want timeouts for late in the game. On the other hand, as you saw in one of the scenarios, is I could roll a 6 and have no timeouts. Well, so how are you going to function in that situation? And so it's real important. We had a ball game, I was doing an interim coaching job at University of Colorado Springs, and we were playing against the conference champion. We were in double overtime, and but before we got there, and end of regulation, we were down a couple of points with about 8 seconds to go, and the opponent had the ball, and we only had 5 fouls. And so we couldn't even get them into the bonus. It didn't look like, but the ball was on the sideline, and so we had instructed our kids. What I told our kids is that you foul them before they ever throw that ball in bounds, because that ball comes in bounds, time's going to run off that clock, and clock is our enemy, not the opponent right now. And so we made sure that they knew how to foul before the clock ever ran, and we got 3 fouls in a row before the ball was ever inbounded, and sent them to the free throw line, and they missed. We came down and scored. Anyway, we ended up winning double overtime. But if we hadn't, if I didn't know how to function in that situation, the other team would have, I think, would have won the game pretty easily. So anyway, timeouts. Then we need to know who to foul, and we know how to foul. We have a term we use, we call red dog. And if I call out red dog, it means we want an intentional foul, but we don't want it to look like an intentional foul. The worst thing you can do is and we also don't want to holler out foul number 32. And then they foul them, and the referee calls an intentional foul, and you ask him how come, and he says, well, coach, you're telling him to foul. All right, so we're going to go aggressively for the ball, and about 1 out of 20 times we might actually separate them from the ball and no foul called. We're going to go aggressively for the ball in that situation. All right, and so I'd say red dog 32. Then they would know we're going to foul that particular player. If you need to foul a player, I'm just going to talk about a couple scenarios here. You need to foul a player that is a real bad free thrower. What we do is that, let's say I'm that bad free thrower and you're guarding me. All right, I'm the bad free thrower. So what I would want you to do is you're guarding me. I want you to go trap the ball handler. Well, now you've left me, the bad free thrower, open. They throw the ball to me, and now you come back and foul me. So examples, situations like that. So you need lead protection strategy. Again, if you've got a lead, the clock becomes your opponent here again, not the team that you're playing. Do you have a delay game? Do you have a spread game? We do. And I don't know if some high schools have shot clocks, some don't. Colleges all have them, so you can't hold the ball forever, but you can certainly run some time off the clock. Are you going to, do you want ball handlers and free throw shooters in at the end if you're in lead protection? Do you want to get into substituting, on foul situations, dead balls? Do you want to consider getting into substituting a defender or a rebounder in for a kid that maybe is not so good, and then in the next dead ball you get the good ball handler shooter back into that situation. So you need to take all those things into consideration. Obviously, another scenario is the score is tied. How are you going to handle that? Then last second, the final thing we get into is last second plays. Again, we tell our players they don't guarantee victory, but they guarantee a chance at victory. And I think that's so important. I remember being, when I was at the University of Utah as an assistant coach, I remember being at a game that I was scouting. We used to do live scouting in those days, and here was a nationally ranked team that I was scouting. They were down 2 with 3 seconds to go, and they had the full 94 feet to go. They had to go all the way to the other end to try to get a score. And here was their last second play. They inbounded it to a guard who was still 85 feet from the basket, and he turned and threw an 85-foot shot at the basket. And I just thought to myself, you got to be kidding me. This is a nationally ranked team, and that's the best that they could come up with was an 85-foot heave for their last second play. So I want to get into, there's a couple of last second plays. I've got several, but I just want to do a couple of them for you here to give you an idea of some things that we did. And I'm going to start off with that first one we call the 94-foot play. You've heard me talk about it already. Okay, so here's the scenario. You're going to have a kid down here who's going to be inbounding the ball. Okay, and up at the other end, actually the basic idea for this probably came from the last second play that the Soviets used to beat the United States. They had to do it 3 times to do it, if you know anything about the history of the 1972 Munich Olympics. But anyway, they threw a long full court pass and scored at the buzzer to beat the U.S. So anyway, so here's what we're going to do. I've got 2 pretty good rebounders. Excuse me, I'm going to start one on the free throw line right behind him. I'm going to darken that guy right here. So I got a 4-person stack, all right? And so here's what's going to happen in this situation. Now, my target guy is the blackened out player right here on this situation. So here's what's going to happen. Come back down here. As the referee is delivering the ball to our inbounder. Now, sometimes that's with a bounce pass, sometimes it's with a handoff, all right? But as he is delivering the basketball to that guy, at the other end, here's what's happening, all right? On that handoff, on the act of the handoff, on the act of the bounce, the first person in the stack begins a sprint to his right, going toward the far sideline. The second person on that handoff by the referee, or the bounce pass, the second person goes to his left, sprinting toward the sideline. The 4th player in the stack is going to choose to go right or left around the darkened player right there and come to an area above the top of the circle. The reason he does this, I'll talk about his role right here. In case the pass is short, he would be able to go get the ball. All right. Now, the guy that we're targeting again is this guy right here. So what we're going to do is that my inbounder is now going to throw as high a pass as he can. He's going to throw a real high pass and try to drop it on this guy right here. Okay, that's the objective. But again, that's a long pass, and it's hard to be accurate, all right? So here are the situations that you need to be aware of. And by the way, we tell any of these players down here, this is real important to tell them this, okay? It's real important to tell them this, is that catch, no matter what you do, catch the ball first. Catch the ball first. Because we've had situations, fortunately, in practice, where a kid was trying, it's 2 seconds to go, and he just doesn't understand the amount of time, that's a lifetime, really, in the game of basketball. He doesn't understand how much time that is, and he rushes and fumbles that pass, all right? Anyway, this fourth kid in the stack comes up here. In case the pass is short, he's there. But again, you adjust. That pass isn't going to come directly to him if it's short. It may be, it may be over here, it may be over here. So you come into that area and then you go compete for it. Same thing with this kid. He's going to have to move probably to be able to compete for it. But now let's go one step further. All right, coming back here. We talked about if these two players are going to break right and left toward the sideline, sprint toward the sideline on the referee's delivery of the ball. Now here's the next part. When the ball is clearly out of the hands of our inbounder down here, when it's clearly out of his hands, they can see there's air between the ball and that guy's hands, they turn now and sprint to the corner of the board. These two guys sprint, okay, to the corner of the board. And they're looking, they want to be aware of this in case the pass is long. And that's happened on more than one occasion. That the pass, this kid was all geeked up down here, the adrenaline and everything else, and throws the pass and it sails over the head of our intended target right there. And one of these kids is able to go in and get the ball. In fact, I mentioned that Western New Mexico University game where a kid could have dribbled out the clock and lost the ball off his foot, and we had 2 seconds left to go. We throw 94-foot play, and the pass is so long. This kid's clear down here, catches it as he's falling out of bounds, shovels it across to this kid who lays it in at the buzzer. All right. So again, ball's in the air, and now if it's anywhere around our intended target, he's going to go up for that thing, compete. I tell him compete for it like it's a rebound. And the other thing, and here's the thing I tell our players, it's really interesting. Here's what I tell our players. This play never works in practice, always works in a game. And I mean, I'm telling you, that is exactly how it works. And one of the things in your favor is that the last thing that if you're coming out of a timeout, the last thing that these players are thinking as they come down each year is, I don't want to foul anybody. I don't want to foul anybody on this. And so you'd be surprised how easy it is to actually complete this pass. All right, so this is a play with, I got 2 or 3 seconds to go, and we're going to go the full length of the court. And when I was a high school coach who ran this play, and this is a true story, in 1 week, our freshmen, JVs, and varsity all won in the same week on the 94-foot play. So again, it's a play that it's amazing. The positives you can get out of this thing. Okay, so now one other play, and I'm just going to flip this around right now. And this play is called our 7-second play. All right. In the 7-second play, here's the deal. This play takes about 6 seconds to unfold. From the time the ball is going to go, through the basket if we make the shot, and we almost always do. It's going to take 6 seconds for this play for us to put that shot up, or actually, come through the net, which gives us enough time in case we would miss this. And I think back, we've never not scored on this play. It's a play that I save for, it's just, got to win, got to have it. It's the only time that we break it out, all right? But anyway, if we'd happen to miss it, it gives us a second for a possible tip-in. If not, we're going to overtime. We've left no time for our opponent. If we score, we leave almost no time for our opponent to have any kind of a counter play to come back and get back into the ball game. So here's how 7-second play works, all right? At the 7-second mark, we're going to begin a bench countdown, and it is important that your players understand it has to be an accurate countdown. You know, sometimes fans will count down the end of the game. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They all cheer, and then a second half later, the buzzer goes off because they get excited. It has to be an accurate countdown. Here's something else to consider. Score clocks have the tenths of a second, and so when that clock first flips, think about this. I'm counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, the instant that I see 7 on there, it actually is at 7.9 seconds. All right, so you need to be aware of that that part of it also. All right, so we're on an accurate countdown. All right, this kid right here is going to be facing in that direction. He's going to be facing the baseline. He's going to have his back to the point guard in this situation. Now, the point guard's dribbling the ball out, whatever he's doing to occupy, to help run this time down. All right, but at 7 seconds, here's what's going to happen. All right, that's 7 seconds. So 10, 9, 8, 7. This kid, who by facing the baseline, looks like he's going to set a screen for somebody. He has his back, not even looking at the basketball. When we hear 7, he's going to pop out right to here, and we're going to deliver the basketball to him. On 7, this player sprints into this corner. He's a decoy, okay, but he's going to sprint into that corner. All right, so we make this pass. The point guard is going to start coming down to screen for this kid right here. And as he's coming down, he's going, Bill, use my screen. Just to kind of sell that thing. This kid is looking only at the eyes of his defender, only looking at the head of his defender. That's all he's looking at, all right? As this kid's approaching him, he'll take a step, or at any time he sees this kid turn and look at the screen, anything that makes it look like this guy's ready to move in that direction, or look in that direction, this kid backdoors right here. Now this area's been cleared out. Remember, we had a guy here, but he's over in the corner right now. So this whole side, this kid's got the ball. So this defender's going to be locked up on this low post guy right in here. All right, and this kid is going to, he doesn't want his guy to score the winning basket, so he's going to fight that screen. You go back door, and I got this. This is an old play that Dean Smith used at North Carolina years and years ago. He used it as part of his offense. And if he couldn't get the backdoor lob, which they got a lot, because if the defense got back and got in position, this kid would spin and pin. But we don't have time for that. And again, we haven't shown this at all. And I mean, every time we've used this, we've gotten a layup. Now, let me show you something here real quick. Just to share with you, we used to make scrapbooks for our players out of all the newspaper articles. We'd have our managers copy these every time there was a game write-up, and then we'd put it into a scrapbook form. But I want to read something real quick from this scrapbook, and this is a season where we had to win. We had to beat the first, and there were 3 of us in a 3-way tie for the conference championship in this particular year, and we had to beat the other 2 teams with our 7-second play in the second weekend from the end of the season and the final game of the regular season. I want to read a quote from one of our kids. It says, "Mavs fly higher than the Eagles." So it says here, after we ran our 7-second play, won by 2 points, Bill Capel says, "That play works every time." He says, "Worked all year long. What are we, 3 for 3 now?" Tom Cook made another great pass. Everybody has to sell their part. We sold it and it worked. All right. So again, we ran it 3 times that year, won 3 games with that 7-second play. So we've got other plays. That might be a future YouTube video, but that just kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that we do. Again, I said before, doesn't guarantee victory, but it guarantees us a chance at victory, and I think that's really important. Again, I just think this is a critical part of our success. And if you want to turn a season around, if you want to start winning close games and bumping that record up higher and higher, I heartily encourage you to spend some time every day in your practice on time and score.
Hey, Coach, I hope you enjoyed that. Subscribe. Please share this with everybody, and go and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Somewhere up here, somewhere it will be somewhere. I hope you enjoyed the video, and check it out. Some other great ones in our community at Teach Hoops. Thanks.